I would also think about your anxiety, like try like when you have time to just sit down and think about this stuff and like maybe be away from other people, like try to like find where that fear is coming from and almost, I mean, it's probably because you're associating like your future with the success on the test, but if you can like explicitly identify that and almost like seek it out. Like it's one of those weird things where like I don't know, this is probably a horrible example, but I've been told, or my mom told me, whenever I had hiccups, like try to anticipate the next hiccup, and then it like you can't hiccup. Has anyone heard that before? Or is that just like weird folklore that I heard? Anyways, but sometimes it works, right? Like you have hiccups, you're like, oh, I want to get rid of them. Although I don't have them as an adult anymore, but I'd be like focusing on the next hiccup, and it goes away. Focus on like try to get that anxious feeling. Like be like, okay, how do I generate that? And then it's almost like you it's almost like it's like disappointing because you're like it's not as intense as I wanted it to be, which is ironic because you want it to be like less intense, right? And just like reflect on that. Maybe make it a daily practice for like 10 minutes. Just think about like, okay, can I recreate that anxiety? What is the source of that anxiety? Because some of it is you need to realign your values, like kind of step back and think about what's really important to you, like learning or just growing as a person. And as you kind of realign your values, then the thing that's driving that anxiety should on some level dissipate.
Hmm. Okay.
Not to get like judgy, like, oh, your values aren't good or something, but like everyone has this, and it usually stems from like we're like valuing something that isn't as actually important as we probably all agree is that like our subconscious is making it to be. I mean, I would also just like step back and say, okay, what do I really want? Well, I want to grow as a person, right? Like that's like regardless of where you end up in life, you want to grow as a person. So how do you grow? Well, you face this challenging test. You maybe you could even imagine yourself utterly failing it, right? And failing out, like not getting accepted. It's like, okay, well, that could be a huge growing opportunity because like you go through it and you're like, yeah, throw me more. I just handled that and it was fine. But the reality is that probably won't come about. But you're like imagining like what could I take that? Yeah, you could take that. You could probably take a lot worse. Um, and the reality is that probably won't happen. But if your real goal is growth, then regardless of whether you do well or not, then you're going to win because you're going to grow from it. And the reality, then the anxiety goes away, and ironically, you start to do better.